Hi, Rick here from Marathon Models, DJI dealer from the UK and RC specialist for over 40 years. In this video I'm going to be covering DJI's new Phantom 4 Pro and Pro Plus models. So this was a kind of like iPhone 7S upgrade to the Phantom 4 model. So what DJI have done, it's essentially the same craft, but what they have done is they've now put on a fantastic new camera. You now have a 1-inch sensor, 20 megapixels, 4K at 60 frames per second and at 100 megabits per second. So certainly for both photograph and video, that is a major upgrade. You normally would have had to have had an Inspire with an X5 to even be close to this, but this is in fact got a higher megapixel than DJI's X5 on the Inspire 1. Other upgrades, as you know, we originally had the obstacle avoidance on the front. This has now been put on the rear and also on the side. So the sort of wish list we've had for a while with drones has always been 360 degree obstacle avoidance, and now on the Phantom 4 we have it. I'm sure this is something we're going to probably start to see in other DJI craft as time goes on. Now the craft I'm going to be showing you today in my getting started video is the Phantom 4 Plus model, and what the Plus stands for is it has the monitor on it. Now this is a 5.5-inch display. DJI call this the Crystal Sky display. It will also be eventually available as a standalone device, and you'll always be able to get a 7-inch version of it as well if you already have a DJI craft. Main difference is super clear, super bright. So even in direct sunlight, you will not have an issue with sunlight shining on that screen, where normally with iPads, etc., you've always had to put on like a sun hood or a matte screen protector to even stand a chance of seeing it in very bright light. So without further ado, I'm going to show you how to get your Phantom 4 up and running. Now you could check out my Phantom 4 video that I've already done, and it's essentially going to be exactly the same. However, prop on my nose there. However, there are some major differences in the calibration side of things, and I'll also give you a wee rundown on the new Crystal Sky display. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the batteries out and we need to charge them. Okay, so for charging the battery, we're going to need a couple of things. Well, of course, we're going to need your controller, and we're going to need the battery, and we're going to need the charger. The charger's got two connectors, one for the main battery and one for the controller. So plug it in to the mains via your supplied UK specific power cable. Then simply to charge the main flight battery, the connector is omnidirectional. You can plug it in either way, it doesn't matter. It just simply plugs in, and then when you go to the front, you'll now see you've got a flashing light. And the way it'll work is, just now the battery's down at 20%, which is typically how DJI ship it, which is a little bit low. I wish they would put a bit more charge in them. And simply the way it will go is, as it charges up, the lights will start scrolling further and further up. When it gets to the max, the lights will turn off. They don't stay on or change a different color, they just literally turn off. Also as well, if the battery, if I remember right, is more than 90% charged and you plug it into the charger, it won't charge. A little trick you can do if you want to get it fully charged is, if you basically turn the battery on as if you were going to turn the model on, which I'll cover later on, which is basically push it and then within 2 seconds, push it and hold it, it will turn the battery on and then it will start charging. Then to charge the controller, in the side here, we have another little connector, and that plugs into there. Now, the there we go. I was about to say the controller probably won't charge because I've already charged it, but actually I hadn't fully charged it, and you can now see this light scrolling. Same with this, they will turn off when it's fully charged. Okay, so now we have the battery charged, we can get the craft turned on for the first time and get the craft activated. A couple of things you need to do before you get started though, that is quite important. The first one is when the craft is in transit, there is, you'll see this little rubber block here. It's like a transit lock. It's really like, you know, when you buy a washing machine and inside the back of the washing machine there's big clamps you have to remove. It's only for transit and you only do it once. So we just remove that block out. It doesn't need to go back in. Just pull it out, put it in your box and be done with it. The other thing that we will be taking off and on is this gimbal clamp here. It stops the gimbal, which is which is stabilized. In fact, if I just unclip this and take it off, the gimbal is, let's pull that off. As you see, the gimbal obviously moves, but it's also rubber mounted as well. And what that plastic bracket does is keeps it from getting damaged in transit if you were to maybe check it onto a plane or something like that. But you must never turn the craft on with that bracket still on. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the gimbal's going to try and move and calibrate itself, and you'll get a motor overload protection, or worse still, you could actually damage the motor. So you definitely don't want to do that. So before you ever turn it on, remove the gimbal clamp. So remove the gimbal clamp, and we want to put the battery in. The battery actually does go in a certain way. I don't know if you can see that on camera. That side's higher than that side is the bottom. If you try and put it in the other way, it just won't go in. Simple as. Put it in like that. Now you should always turn on the controller before the craft. You know what, it probably doesn't matter, but if you're old school radio control, you should never have the crafter turned on without the controller on. So first of all, let's pull it back like that. To turn the controller on, which is the same as the craft, you've got two buttons on the front here. One is actually the home button to send it home, the other one's the power button. And what we do is, it's quite simple. You push it once, and then within 2 seconds you push it and hold it. So if you watch what I do, and then you can watch the little light. So I push it once and push it and hold it. You see the light scroll, you'll hear the beep, and now that controller is on. Same with the craft. Push it once and push it and hold it. You hear all the fans powering up. While it's doing its little initialization, it's a good idea not to touch it, because the gimbal will do IMU calibration. As you can see it moving there, you must let it do that.
Low battery warning.
That's interesting, because it is charged. Okay, so that's that done. And then we have obviously the controller. Now what we will now cover, in fact, one thing I'll just touch on actually, I've got to mention this, as you'll notice the props are not on the craft. Never ever ever have your craft turned on with the props on unless you're about to fly. Now there's no reason why the craft might fire into life, but you never know. You could be working on the craft, someone else touches your controller, arms and motors, and boom. Believe me, those blades are sharp and you'll do yourself an injury. So if you have your props on, take them off. If they're not on, don't put them on. Okay, so now you will be on your welcome screen. And a little bit like, you know, when you get an iPad, you've got to tell it what language you want to talk in and things like that. So obviously, as there's only one I can understand, we're on English. So click on Start. Click on Next. Obviously there's a user agreement. They just basically want you to admit, if you're going to use this irresponsibly, that it's got nothing to do with them. I'm going to cover all about like drone health and safety and stuff like that when I come back on. Sorry, at the end of the video. Now, it will require Wi-Fi to do, because what it's going to do is it's going to connect to the DJI servers to activate. So we look for the local network. This is mine here. If you're a Star Trek fan, that will make sense. And we just, actually got to put your password in. Okay, so enter your password, click on Done, Connect. And there we go. So we can now click on Next. Set time, so we are... Come on. Sorry, I'm looking at this at a bit of a funny angle so the camera fits in, so I can't quite... Here we go, London and Dublin. Welcome Dublin. Here are the points for the Eurovision Song Contest. There we go. So now this is the part, if you haven't already got a DJI account, you need to create one. If you already own a DJI craft, you will already have this already. If you have any issues at this stage where, well, obviously if you're logging in, it's simple, email address, your password, boom, logged in. If you haven't already got a DJI account, then obviously you can sign up. If you do have any issues at this point of signing up, just simply go onto your computer and do it manually on their website and then come back. So I'm just going to log in and put your password in, press go, sign in. There we go. So we're now signed in, and we're now going to activate the craft. Now you only do this once, and this assigns the craft to you. Go! All very exciting. Device activated, available now. And welcome to the DJI Go app. Now, if you are already familiar with DJI craft from the pretty much Phantom 3, Inspire 1, I suppose Mavic onwards, you'll be familiar with literally all of this. So if you want to be honest with you probably don't need to know much more apart from skipping forward to the IMU calibrations. What I will do actually, although this video will be encompassing everything, what I will do is I will break this video down into little sections. So for example, if you just wanted to see what it was like to how to calibrate the IMU, you'll be able just to skip to that section and just watch that video. So if you look out, I will have obviously a Phantom 4 playlist on my YouTube channel, and you will obviously be able to see all the different sections. And if you great guys are supportive and buy from me or subscribe to me or support me through my Patreon channel, then I'll be able to bring you lots more. Okay, so without further ado, we will go into... So before we go into the actual app itself, I'm going to cover a couple of things on the screen first. Sorry if I keep putting my elbow on and shaking the camera there. So first we've got a settings button. So in here you're going to have, it's like your DJI account, and what it does in here, it will log all sorts of stuff like for example, if you've like your flights, etc., there's messages in here. It's just like a little sort of messenger type app. Now if you do have multiple devices or you already have a DJI flight account, you can actually sync this one to your existing ones. That's why there's nothing in here, because I haven't actually sank it yet, if that would be the word for it. So we have that in there. In here we have our flight logs. Now this is actually quite an interesting one, because as you can see in here, oh look, flight log, 1 minute, Shenzhen City. That was obviously where it was built. So so top distance, so in here you'll have all sorts of things like the countries you've been to, distances, your altitude. Of course your altitude should not be above 400 feet, because that is the legal limit. Well, it is in the UK and should be everywhere else. So you've got all things like total flight time, etc. I'll be honest with you, I don't know why it's saying 12 hours, unless it was actually switched on for 12 hours at the factory. I'm not too sure about that. Flight times 126. Oh sorry, what this will actually be doing, it appears it has actually sank to my account. So this is just some of the flights that I've done. So we're going to come back out of there. I can explain that on another video in more detail. But if we go into here, in here we have got one handy thing that you might want to try before you fly the real thing, is you do have a simulator function. So basically what it will do is it will simulate the flying of the drone. So probably a good idea to do this first before you actually fly the craft for the first time. But again, I'm going to come back to this on another video, because this is all about the craft. So we're going to go back here. Go back to Academy, but what we're wanting to do, you're out in the field, you want to fly, we're going to go into the DJI Go app itself. Boom! Spider-Man, Spider-Man does everything Spider-Pig does, if you're into The Simpsons. No, it actually does much more than just looks at Spider-Man jigsaws. So at the moment, obviously, red cannot take off. Of course it can't, because we're in a house, we won't have GPS or anything. So what I'll do is I'm just going to do a quick run round of the app. If you're new to things like this DJI app, because it's your first drone, don't try and like bite it all off at once. Most of it you just don't need to know. Leave the camera on automatic, etc. And just have fun and fly. And what I will do, I will go over the very basics of what you have to know. So first thing at the top, this is a status bar. Oh, you see my finger in here? Yep. In fact, I'm going to zoom this out slightly so you can definitely see my hand pointing at stuff. So the first thing we have here, this is the main status bar. When it's green, you can fly. Simple as. In here we've got our first menu. This is where you will do a lot of the settings. As I say, I will cover this into another video, but there are some essentials in here. You've got things like home point settings, you've got enable multiple flight modes. What that allows you to do is fly in the faster sport mode, or ATE, which is a non-GPS mode, and that can be turned on here, because although there is a switch on the top of the controller to switch off and on, it won't do anything unless that has been enabled. So there's also beginner mode. Turn that on and the craft won't fly further or higher than 30 meters. In here it's already preset to a maximum altitude of 120 meters. Coming down a bit, distance limits is set, but actually that is incorrect, because in the UK you shouldn't fly beyond 500 meters, which is basically a line of sight. So I don't know why they've put 5,000 in there, that'd be completely wrong. And in the bottom you've got things like advanced settings. Again, this is the beginner's guide, so we're not going to go into there. Working away along, here is now some like heads up display. So we've got things like obstacle avoidance is on, the controller, see all the wee bars, it's kind of like your mobile phone. They're good. HD, that's the video streaming system, it is good. Battery in the craft, it is also good. On the end one, this is kind of like another menu, but you can set all your sorts of things like units, that sort of stuff in there. Trying to think if there's anything that would be handy to show you just now. No, I think we're pretty good. This is all fairly advanced stuff, because believe me, you can just change everything in a DJI Phantom. So coming back along the top, this is going to show you camera settings, which I'll show you how to change in a minute. So it's your ISO, shutter speed, f-stop, your exposure control, obviously cameras on auto, always a good place to start. Your pictures are taken in JPEG. You can also have that to either JPEG and RAW, which is generally what I shoot in, so you can play with it. Capacity, and the two N ones. Now, what it is, now this is going to probably catch a lot of people out, you do have to focus the camera. This is not like the Phantom 3 or the Phantom 4. You probably heard me when I tapped the screen before, you get the wee tick, If you forget to do that, you're going to take off and you're not going to notice it, but all your pictures are going to come out soft because they weren't focused. So best practice to do, take off, point the camera at the horizon, hit the tap focus, and then generally forget about it, because it's going to focus on infinity, and unless you're trying to shoot something a few meters away, it should be cool. But if you forget about that and you have happened to tap focus it on something much closer, like Spider-Man, and you take off, and then you've got like Dr. Octopus or something tearing down a skyscraper, shot of a lifetime, you're not gonna get any of it. You're going to be pretty miffed off. So that is that. There's also, if you touch that button there, this now gives you exposure control. So when you tap on that thing, as you can see, it getting awfully bright, and then when we go into the white part, it's going to dull right down. So you can juggle between the two. There's also an exposure lock if you want it, which is quite handy, especially if you're shooting a lot of contrasting jobs. Moving down, the first button there, what that does is that moves you between photo mode and video mode. Now, the camera settings, which are below, as you see, this is like a, you're buying a compact camera, or to be honest, you're buying a DSLR nowadays, because this has got that kind of sort of high-endness to it. You've got all your ISO adjustments, aperture, shutter speed, and all that can all be adjusted there. And then you've got, so that's camera settings. You've got video settings in here, so you can change things like whether you're shooting in 4K or 1080. I generally shoot in 1080. The packet, whether you're if you're America, NTSC, but as I am in the UK, boom. There we go. Boom. I want PAL, otherwise it's going to jutter like hell. And you've also got things like, your color styles and stuff. I'll be honest with you, I tend to fly on none, and then if I want to richen up the colours, I do it later on. Problems you get sometimes, if you set it to vivid, it does look good and it's fine for YouTube and stuff, but if you do something a bit serious with it, it might look oversaturated. So that is that, and then of course if you switch over to camera, you've now got your camera settings. So for example, I said about shooting in JPEG and RAW, that's what I do. I can set that there. You've got your color styles again, and then of course you've got your settings there. So you would have had this for the video as well. So all your different video settings there. Again, I'll cover this in a more in-depth video later on, because again, I would just do the basic settings, and then set it to auto. No point in confusing yourself. So you've got all that. Down here you will have, well, SD card is empty, but normally in here you would have all your photographs and your videos, and you could play them back. And there is a video editor, like when we first came into the first screen, there was a video editor, so you can actually edit your videos in this as well. And then along the bottom we've got a bit of telemetry. VPS, what that is, that's the visual positioning system. So that's like the sensors on the bottom of the craft, so it gives you an absolute accurate distance from craft to ground. It comes up here. Here you've got your actual height and distance on the top. So that's going to be a wee bit more approximate than that, because after about, it's either 3 or 10 meters, that goes out of range, and then that will cut in. And then of course you've got horizontal speed in miles an hour and vertical speed in miles an hour. Then across to here, this is actually where all the maps will be. Now, I've not cached the maps on, because normally the maps would actually be here to show your home point, and you can either have them as like maps or as in satellite maps, and you can really see where you are, so that's quite good. And this all works for example, when you want to replay your flight logs, etc., it all gets replayed onto the maps. So we have that, and then coming across here we have a few special features. One is auto takeoff. I'm going to be honest with you, as you see there, you slide that across, boom, up it goes. I'll be honest, use automated features as less as possible, because when it's an automated flight, you're not fully in control. You would have to take control, and if something happens, like you take off, just as you take off, some small child runs over, you're not going to be able to shut the motors down that quick. So I always tend to auto take off and auto land, don't use it. Then under here we have the special flight functions. Again, I am going to cover these in a separate video because these are quite in depth. Don't plow into them straight away though, because you'll end up confusing yourself. Learn how to fly the drone, or find someone that can teach you how to. For example, I'm a proper DJI dealer and we offer drone lessons, so we would go all through this with the customer before we hand the craft over. But that's it in here. You've got your normal flight functions, draw, gesture, active track. That's a great one where you basically select a shape on the screen, like somebody standing in a field, they run off, or like a car or a motorbike, and the craft will follow. You've got tap fly, where you just tap a point on the screen and the craft will fly there, and so on and so on. So you've got loads and loads of great features, great automated features, but again, that's like a video in itself, so I'm going to cover that separately. Again, don't go into that until you've had at least a decent amount of flying with the craft. Okay, so next part of the video will be controller functions. So I've shown you the functions of the app, but obviously you're going to control the craft from the controller. Again, if you're used to DJI craft, this will all seem fairly straightforward. I'll be honest, if you're used to even radio control helicopters, this is a little bit different. The controls are slightly different. So you've got two controls. Here we go. This is your main flight controller, flight controls. So it's quite simple. That is to increase altitude, that would be hovering, decrease altitude, and that will be hovering. This turns your craft left, that turns your craft right. That will bank you to the left, that will bank you to the right. Push that stick will fly you forward, and pull this stick will fly you back. The on-off button we covered. This is the home button. For example, for whatever crazy reason, the screen packed up, something, I don't know, you hit that home button and the craft will fly home. You can, if you regain control for whatever reason, or your screen comes back on, you can take control again. It's not the be all and end all. Right, spinning round to the controls here and there. So first one's actually, we'll come to here. So the first one you've got, that is the record button, obviously start stop video. That is the gimbal tilt, so that'll tilt the gimbal up and down. It is proportional, small amount of movement, gimbal moves a little bit, lots of movement, gimbal will move much faster. And you can set all this up in the app on how sensitive that is. Now here is your special function thing. I'm going to put that back on because whoever owns this next will be a beginner at some point. You've got your different flight modes here. So what you have is, you've got this is like your GPS mode, so that will basically be position hold, where you let go, craft will sit exactly where it wants. Next one down, you've got your S mode. This is of course if you have activated the advanced flight functions, as I showed you earlier. This will give you all the stability but not position hold. This is quite popular flight mode of videographers who want lovely gliding, smoothing shots. They don't want to let go of the control and then it kind of, you get a shot like as if an anchor has been dropped out of a boat and it suddenly stops. And then the bottom one is actually sport mode. What sport mode is, it's crazy mode. Craft is mega fast. One thing to remember, that a obstacle avoidance does not work in sport mode. It's so fast it would not be able to stop in time. To be honest, it's good for a bit of fun, or if you get caught in a really high wind and you have to get back upwind, you can drop into sport mode. I'll be honest, to actually shoot video in sport mode, half the time the craft is banking over that steeply, the gimbal gets a little bit upset and will probably go limp. So, but again, if you're not sure, leave that up there, put the sticker back on, and you won't be tempted to touch it. So that's the buttons on that side. Buttons on this side. Hope this is all in focus, otherwise I'm going to be making this video again. Here we have another scroller function. What this does is you can actually custom set what this button does, but when it comes out the box, oops, what this does, if I can just quickly flick this around, I know I'm going to be able to get this in shot, it's going to be upside down, but see how your camera functions along here? I don't know if I press that, see how it's gone blue, you can adjust it, gone blue, and then when I twist the wheel, see that's your exposure running up and down. So really handy if you're just flying, you want a quick camera adjustment, boom, and you can adjust it. So that's what that one does. This one here is for, whoops, that is for taking pictures, which actually auto focuses. That must have been a firmware update because I never used to auto focus, so that is actually quite good. And this is a pause function. What that is, you know, I showed you earlier with the special flight features, there is one called like waypoints, etc. There's lots of automated features, I should say, where the craft will be flying itself. If it were impending doom and something has moved into the road of it and you're panicking and you can't get to the screen to switch off, hit the pause button, it will stop what it's doing. So if you're at a point of interest and it's going round and suddenly you're like, oh my god, I'm going to clip the tree, I never noticed that, boom, pause, then you sort of think, well, actually okay, it wasn't actually that close, boom, hit it again and it will continue on its merry way. Right, moving on, we have connectivity here. We have a few sockets. Now, traditionally on a Phantom, on the Phantom 4 Pro and the Phantom 4, where you would actually have your own tablet on top here, not this built-in monitor, this is actually where it would connect in. Your sort of standard charging USB cable would go from here to the monitor. You obviously don't need that. You have HDMI, which is quite cool, so if you wanted to run a live feed like into a monitor or something, you could be doing a live event or something, because remember, these craft are at professional grade and doing live events, although remember, rules and regs for live events, you cannot fly over live events or gatherings of more than 1,000 people. You have to be 150 meters away. So don't be thinking you can just go rocking over a concert and stream like live coverage to your mates. That's not going to happen. SD card, what that is for taking stuff from the tablet. There's a USB socket at the end, but to be honest, I think that's just a future-proofing thing. It doesn't actually do anything. On the back of the controller, there are a couple of hotkeys. Again, these are advanced features, but you can use these for setting things. They're also used for the advanced flight functions. For example, when you're flying waypoints, so that's like an autonomous flight, where you would fly the flight and you would, each time you hit the button, it would record a position. You fly on to the next one, hit the button, record a position, and then what you can do is you can have the craft fly through those coordinates, and that's how you set the positions. So they get used for lots of different things. Again, that's for future videos, etc., and not again for beginners. Obviously on the side there, you did see that was for charging. Always remember to pop that back in, because see, if you jam it back into the box and that's hanging out, you'll actually tear that off. You can buy them. DJI don't sell things like rubber bobbins on their own. So that is the covering of the main features of the Phantom controller. Just a one little tip, it's white and it's going to get dirty, especially all those lovely rubber bits. A wee tip for keeping these lovely and clean, see if you use like baby wipes or toilet wipes or like these little surface wipes, wipe them down with that, because see all this, the little rubber bobbins, in fact there you go there, I mean this is a brand new craft, see the little bobbins are dirty, you know what that is? the workbenches at DJI. They're probably dirty and it's just picked it up, because that is brand new at the box. So give them a wipe, and I know it's just me, but I like to give them wipes. When we get craft in for servicing and repairs, they always come in dirty. I like to give them a good wipe, and then when you give them back, it's like when you hand your car in for servicing. Now, one other thing I'm going to tell you about: when you get your craft, you'll see your antennas are folded down like that. Absolutely no good. They must be folded out up like this. And the way it works is the signal does not emanate out the tip going out that way towards camera. They emanate out that way. It's like a sort of sideways emanation. So simple as, if you're flying far and high, have the paddles pointing towards the craft. If for whatever reason you were flying almost on the spot and above yourself, pop the paddles down and they emanate out the way, but never have the antennas pointing up at the craft, because that is its blind spot. So always remember that. So if you ever get a weak signal warning, chances are you haven't realised, because the screen is blocking the antennas, you can't see them, and that has happened. Okie dokie. Okay, so before you can fly, there is one essential item that all drones need: props. Now, they are not all the same. You have two. You have a left hand and a right hand. And DJI, don't worry, you can't get them on the wrong way, but to save you time and hassle try to put the wrong prop in the wrong motor, you'll notice that they are coded. So for example, in fact, if I turn the craft around, it will make a better example. As you see, that one's got a black line on it, and those motors have a black dot. The silver line will correspond with the other motor there, which didn't have any dots on it. So that motor, that prop is for that motor. They use a cam lock system, so it's like a medicine bottle. Push on, twist, and you're good to go. But it's massively important you do get this right, otherwise it will fly off. Okay, and that will be nobody's fault but your own. So you just simply push it on. What I tend to do is you can do one of two things. You can either push it on and turn the motor and then let go, or you can obviously turn the prop. I tend to do it with the motor, so I push that down. If you're not lined up, it doesn't matter, just twist it and you see it go down on the spring. If you try to go the wrong way, nothing will happen. Go the right way, you'll feel a click, let go. Now, that's not enough. Always worth grab the motor, not pulling it, because I've done that before and the prop's still pinged off, that way. So grab the motor and try and turn the prop, and that will lock it on, and that is nice and secure. Okie dokie, right, there is actually a massively important thing you must do before you fly your craft for the first time, or it will not fly correctly. Two things. First, you need to calibrate the IMU. What is an IMU? It's the sensor inside the craft that tells it what is flat. So it does, if it thinks it's banking on the side all the time, it's going to fly off the wrong way. So the internal measurement unit, IMU, tells it what is flat. It is important because if it gets bumped, it can go out of whack. So if you have a bit of a tumble or a crash, good idea to do it then. It's also a good idea to do it after firmware updates, which I will also cover. And we need to do a compass calibration as well. That's massively important. But the first one we're going to do is we're going to do IMU calibration. This does mean going into the app. Let's go into the app. So to calibrate the IMU, it's important to calibrate the IMU after you do a firmware update. Now we go into the main menu, scroll down to the bottom, you will see advanced settings, and then you will see sensor state. In here we've got a full diagnostic of all the sensors. Remember, double redundancy, twin IMUs, and you'll see the status here, but we want to go on to IMU calibration. Now this is where it's going to be a bit different. I'm going to back it up here so you can see what I'm doing. But the difference is that you calibrate all axes, not just on the flat. The IMU is the internal measurement unit, and this tells the craft what is level. Where before you only calibrated the one axis, so you left the craft flat on the table to calibrate it. But this time we're going to do flat, on its side, on its nose, on its tail. However, you will see the little graphics, so we're just going to click on start. That is it now calibrating. So important you have a flat surface, you do not touch it. And then you see, first one onto its side. Let that calibrate. And then onto the other side. Remember, you only have to do this after you do a firmware update, or if you experience any unusual flying characteristics, or it's also worth if you have a bit of a bump or a crash, IMU calibration. and on its back side, because as I say, you're tilting the gimbal kind of beyond what it's recommended to go, so it's not a good idea to do it all the time. Certainly wouldn't be doing it after every flight, that's for sure. So as you see, we've pretty much done all axes, and this means the internal measurement unit is calibrated absolutely perfectly flat. Yay, IMU Calibration, boom. So just tip that back over. As you see there, it'll come up and it'll say moving at first. That means it can't tell you what the IMUs are doing because they're moving. But as you'll now notice, remember those back ones there? They were right in the yellow. Be honest, it would have been fine. But now, right in the green. Perfect. Now you'll notice down here, the compass is getting some sort of interference, one of them. Now, I'll show you how to do a compass calibration, but you should always do this outside. So once I've done this, I'm going to do it again, because it won't be done accurately. So if we come out of there, go back into the status, and as you see here, we've got a compass one, details. We're back into the same page, so it's got your compass details there, and as before where we had compass calibration, we now have calibrate compass, and this is not ideal. So first thing we need to do, calibrate compass. Now we get a graphic here showing us exactly what to do. So the first thing we need to do is rotate it on its axis, its flat axis. And there we go, and then you can see now onto its side, and then we're going, sorry, just try and do my best to put it in shot, but it's not really ideal. You can probably see by the camera there, and that's you done. Now that's it calibrated, but and it'll give us the details here. There you go. Actually, it's actually calibrated not bad, but a bad practice to calibrate indoors. You just don't do it. You do it in a nice wide open space. Don't have anything metal around, you know, like if you were like in a car park, there could be pipes or cables underneath, would be a bad thing, and you could definitely get some sort of compass issues. But that is essentially us ready to fly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to actually show you how to start and stop the motors. Okie dokie, so now that we've got everything pretty much out of the way, one thing is, after you've done your IMU calibration, you should actually restart the craft, just to settle that in. So now that we're ready to start the motors, now one thing that's more important than starting motors is how to not only stop the motors, but how to emergency stop the motors. Seen that many videos on YouTube, people flying them in really stupid places, like in their houses, the whole thing goes to hell and they can't even turn the motors off. So to start the motors, we use what's called a combined stick command. That's both sticks in towards each other. Boom, boom, we are off. Now obviously it doesn't like to be sitting without the motors on. And then simply to stop the motors, the stick that you use for increasing height and decreasing height. Actually, see, I'm getting a warning here. It's just warning me, it's thinking there could be a propeller loose. Actually, it's actually missing altogether. But to shut the motors down, you just simply pull the stick back. After 2 seconds, the motors stop. However, if for whatever reason the models crash, like say into a tree, you want to immediately turn the motors off or they will burn out. So what we do, if I just start the motors again, what you do is you do what's a sort of emergency combined stick command, and what you do is you push the home button and the stick across. You just basically go like that, motors stop immediately. Now it has been an emergency shutdown, and that's how you stop the motors immediately. Very important. Okay, so before we go any further, we will require to do a firmware update. Now, this will be for the Phantom 4 Plus and not the Phantom 4 Pro, which I will do a separate video on because it will be slightly different. It'll be just as simple but slightly different. So to update the firmware, what we do, we tap on here, and as you will see, you've got all your details here, version of the update logs here, and we have here prepare to update. Now what we do is we have an adapter which I meant to show you at the start. Bling, in this little bag. So what we do is we open up the little bag, pull the adapter out. We are also going to need the USB lead, which is also included. Right, you'll see a USB socket on the side of the craft, which is what the adapter goes into. Standard USB adapter. Now, I've just got this on its side for the update so you can see it, but again, don't have it on its side because you'll just miff off the gimbal. Then the connector goes in there, and then as you can see from the little graphic, I don't know if you can see that, it's probably a wee bit small. This plugs into the USB port on the controller, which I mentioned earlier, which I actually thought was for something else, but I'm forgetting that this controller was the Plus model. Let's spin that back round, you should be able to see it now, and now we have got downloading, and it's now going to download the firmware. Let's put that in there, put that there, yeah, lift a bit to me, to you, to me, and it's going to download the firmware from the internet. Onto the tablet, and then from the tablet it can then update itself, and it can update the craft as well. So we will let that download. What is it saying at the moment? Downloading 2%. I am going to spare you what is probably going to be a long time, and I'm going to pause the video. Okay, once it's finished downloading, we're going to go on the next screen, and that is now going to start updating. So I'll just move that a bit more central there. Just while that's updating, we're at 2%. It says it can take up to 15 minutes. During the downloading, although I've cut the video, I'll be honest with you, it did actually time out a few times. It came up saying connection failure, restart the devices. You basically do. You have to switch off the controller, switch off the craft, reboot it. If it has downloaded, say 50%, it will pick up from the 50% point. Now, I don't know if it was my internet connection, but to be honest with you, it took a good 45 minutes of downloading to actually download that firmware. It's not a particularly big download, so why it took so long, I'm not sure. To be honest, it might have just been my broadband, I'm not really sure. But I did have to restart it 2 or 3 times. Simply pressing the upgrade back button and going back and then back into the app, to be honest, it didn't work. It just started the update and then it just failed again, so you do have to completely do it. Right, again, that's going to take probably about 15 minutes. We're on 12% just now, so I'm going to pause the video just so you're not hanging about. Just while that's updating, I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. While it's updating, you will notice the craft will make funny noises, lights will go on and off, the gimbal will probably fall limp. Don't worry about it, that's all the different components of the craft doing their thing. Okay, that's us just about done. The craft has just done a full restart, you little peeping away, and that is us complete. So we're just going to complete that, restart your aircraft. So we're going to turn the aircraft off by obviously pushing the button. You hear it all going quiet there, and then we're going to push it back on. There we go. Beep beep beep. Could almost make that a ringtone. Okay, so once we've got that all updated, what we will need to do, obviously, in fact, I will just pull that back. Right, once we've got that updated, we'll need to obviously disconnect the cable. So you've obviously got one there, unplug that, and then we have the one in the side of the craft, disconnect that. And once that's disconnected, as you will now see on the, up, there we go, we can now get connected back to the craft. There we go, back to, as you say, although that actually said there, you probably noticed, if we go back to status bar, it does say updates required. Sometimes what happens is the fact that it needs an update actually caches, but if you actually go in, you'll actually see there's no update required. You'll find that when you restart the controller again, it will actually clear that out. So I hope you found this video helpful in getting started with your new Phantom 4. Remember, it was a quick start guide, and I will do some more videos going into certain items with a bit more intricacy, like the app, and do camera settings and things like that, as I get a bit more experience myself on this particular craft. I am an independent dealer and I do require your support as well, so it would be appreciated if you could share the video, subscribe to my channel and certainly give it a like. You can also now support me through my Patreon channel. The videos themselves, we get, when we make them and put them on YouTube, we do get advertising revenue from Google, but to be honest it's very, very little, doesn't even cover the craft that we actually use in the videos. I am an independent dealer and I obviously appreciate greatly when my customers purchase from me, because that is the main reason I do the videos. Initially when I did my first videos, it was because, well, let's face it, there were just no instructions with the early drones. They do come with better instructions now, and even DJI themselves do videos, although maybe not to any great detail. But I did my videos to set me aside from other DJI sellers, basically all your internet box shifters that really don't care about drones in general and just want to make a buck. And I did my videos to show people that, that not only am I passionate about drones, I do know a great deal about them, and it was a good reason to come shopping with me. It's been a tough old year though in the drone market, not because drones aren't selling, it's just because the box shifters are getting bigger and the little independent dealers are getting smaller. So you can now support me a little bit more through my Patreon channel. I've got a link down in the comments. You can go up there, you can either subscribe and do a small donation on a monthly basis, or you can just drop me a donation if you think this video really did help you and it's worth bunging me a little something. If I get a good response, I'll keep churning out the videos. I'll be honest with you though, with sales dropping off so much over the last year, I am a commercial drone pilot as well, and I'm having to do more and more commercial work, which is giving me less time to actually make the videos. But if I can get support in other ways, then I will keep churning out the videos. If not, sadly, the videos will start to get a little bit fewer and further between, unfortunately. But as I say, it's up to you. If you want more videos, you can help me out. But if you check in down in the comments, you'll see lots of links to my store, links of if you are not in the UK and you cannot purchase from me, you can purchase through my DJI affiliate link, and when you use that link, DJI give me a very small kickback, not in the way of money, but weirdly enough in a credit, so I can buy DJI stuff, although yeah, I've not even raised enough to buy a drone on that yet. But as I say, I've now got my patronage page set up, so you can go and click on that, you can actually make a donation. So I'm Rick from Marinville Models, DJI dealer from the UK and RC specialist for over 40 years. Until the next video, thank you very much.